Long ago, in an age where the seas were wrapped in mist and the sky covered the world like a gray veil, a goddess was born on the Irish lands. She was neither a deity blessed with pure compassion, nor one who was a merciless destroyer. Rather, she was the embodiment of balance itself. The sky whispered her name and the winds told her story. Her name was Morrígan. Morrígan was the daughter of Ernmas, an ancient goddess of the Tuatha Dé Danann. Her mother was a magical woman who held the power of war and prophecy, while her father was a mysterious god who governed the sky and thunderstorms. Morrígan was born on a night filled with whispers from the seas and prophecies carried by the winds along the banks of the Boyne River. Legends say that on the night she was born, crows spread across the sky and a scream from the darkness shook all of Ireland. At the moment she came into the world, rivers overflowed and lightning tore through the sky. Her mother knew that her destiny was written in blood, prophecy, and war. As she grew, the whispers of the winds began to reveal the future to her. She dreamt of wars and heard the laments of deaths yet to come. With each passing day, she grew stronger, and with that strength came control over fate. Her youth was spent in the sacred lands of the Tuatha Dé Danann. Unlike other gods who enjoyed a peaceful existence, Morrígan did not favor calm. She gathered dark clouds in the sky, forecasting the storms that would one day break. Morrígan moved like a hand shaping destiny, passing on the whispers of the future to warriors. Morrígan was the goddess of war and chaos. She was not only a goddess on the battlefield, she was part of fate itself. Enemies trembled at the mere mention of her name. Her prophecies warned warriors or heralded disaster. When her voice was heard, the direction of the war would change. In the Battle of Mag Tuired, she infused courage into the ranks of the Tuatha Dé Danann and instilled fear in their enemies. In the heat of battle, she transformed into a wolf, her eyes glowing with dark fire, her teeth shining like blades in the moonlight. She sowed the seeds of fear in the minds of warriors, causing brothers to fight against each other and friends to be turned against one another. As her howl echoed in the sky, dread fell upon the hearts of Fomorian warriors. When the time came, she took the form of a massive crow, soaring above the battlefield and claiming the souls of every fallen warrior under her dark wings. That day, even the wind whispered her name, and the fate of war was inscribed by her spells. During the war against the Fomorians, her cry resonated throughout the sky while enemies sought places to escape. The sky darkened, and storms erupted in flames as Morrigan's voice combined with the winds to spread terror on the battlefield. It is said she held a blood-red crow in one hand and a curse that ignited lightning in the other. As lightning struck, the earth tearing through enemy lines, Morrigan's eyes shaped destiny itself. In that moment, fear fell upon the Fomorian warriors. Some knelt while others attempted to flee, but the shadow of Morrígan lingered over them. There was no escape, for she was not only an outcome of battle but the beginning as well. In the victory over Brez, her prophecy led the Tuatha Dé Danann to triumph. Before the battle began, the sky turned crimson and rivers fell silent ominously. As Morrígan stepped onto the battlefield, crows spread through the sky, each heralding death and victory. Her cry empowered warriors while demoralizing the enemies. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give us a thumbs up. Your support means the world to us and truly motivates us to create even more content. Thank you for being a part of our community. Morrígan was not only seen on the battlefields, but also among ordinary people. Sometimes she would wander through villages disguised as an old woman, whispering of impending disasters. As a poor beggar, she went door to door, and even if the villagers did not understand her words, the calamities that followed would reveal her true identity. On another day, she might appear before a lost traveler in the forest and tell them which path to take. However, those who ignored her would find themselves face to face with death. Only the wise could decipher the meaning of Morrigan's whispers. At times, she would disguise herself as a merchant in public markets, speaking of objects that brought beauty and luck to people, but no one knew she was a goddess. Those who accepted her offerings would either gain unexpected wealth or encounter a terrible fate. but the outcome was always uncertain. Her appearance was often a silent warning. Those who noticed her either recoiled in fear or tried to understand the truth behind every word she spoke. Morrigan did not merely wander among the people as a shadow. She persisted as a prophecy bearing the whispers of their destinies. Sometimes, she would take on the guise of a shepherd to deceive warriors and guide their fates. Other times, she would reveal her prophecies only in dreams. Those who saw Morrigan in their dreams that night would either achieve a great victory the next day or face a horrific end. Morrigan's prophecies heralded some of the greatest events in history. She had been the harbinger of Ireland's greatest battles. Before the war began, she would cast dark clouds in the sky, still rivers, and change the direction of the winds. When her voice was heard, swords would be sharpened and soldiers would tremble. Every prophecy whispered by Morrigan determined the fate of a battle. Some heeded her warnings and found victory, while others ignored her words and were forgotten beneath the earth. The wars she foretold did not only bring bloodshed and destruction, but also birthed new kings, reshaping lands. Morrigan was the herald of change, not just war. She whispered future wars to King Nuada. On a stormy night, this shadow glided into his tent. In a moment when the river's flow was changing and the winds carried the scent of disaster, this shadow spoke to Nuada in a voice only he could hear. "Blood will flow, swords will break, kings will fall," she said. "But one among them will arise to rule the entire realm." Nuada trembled at the dark hints of the future that appeared in his eyes. Morrigan's prophecies were never meaningless, for she spoke not only of what would happen, but also of what must happen. Nuada gave the order to prepare for war, for fate was already written. She had foretold warriors of their destinies, but never allowed them to escape those fates. Even today, some rumors mention that she still exists among the Black Crows. In the greatest wars in history, when death screams are heard, her name is whispered. She wanders like a ghost in the blood-soaked earth, reading the future in the eyes of the dead. When warriors fall to the ground, her whispers resonate in the wind, weaving the threads of the future. The enemy's defeat is inevitable. For Morrigan is the only being who knows that war is not just an end, but also a beginning. Where she arrives, war is unavoidable. However, this war does not merely mean blood and chaos. For Morrigan is not only a goddess who brings death, but also a power that reshapes life. She snatches the souls of the dead from the battlefield and transforms them into legends, etching the names of the brave who die into the endless flow of time. Inside every destruction lies the seed of a new era, and Morrigan is the strongest hand that sows this seed. While warriors know her as a harbinger of disaster, the wise recognize that she brings not only destruction, but also rebirth. Because where Morrigan is, nothing remains as it was, neither fallen kings nor rising thrones. She is the very shadow that whispers not only of deaths but also of new beginnings. Morrigan's love is as intricate as fate itself. She is a lover who brings destruction, like a storm that changes everything she touches. Those who fall in love with her lose themselves in her shadow. Those who whisper her name dance on the edge of madness. Her love for Chulainn was one of her greatest trials. But Chulainn rejected her love, for he was a solitary warrior who could not bind his fate to another. Morrigan saw this rejection as a betrayal, for she believed that she could bend fate itself. But this time destiny slipped from her grasp. Her anger turned her gaze to a dark storm. Her cry struck fear into the hearts of enemies, resounding across battlefields. Morrigan waited to see Chulainn's end. She wove his fate with her prophecies, whispering his approaching calamity step by step. In the battlefield, she transformed into 3 different women to approach him. First as a weary shepherd girl offering him water, then as an ancient wise woman giving him advice, and finally taking the form of a wolf to frighten his war horses. Chulainn turned her away each time without recognizing her. When the day came that Chulainn fell to the ground, bloodied, Morrigan perched upon his shoulder as a black crow. With the dying warrior's last breath, she whispered his name. Whenever a crow lands on a corpse in battle, there Morrigan's name is mentioned. In that moment, Her greatest prophecy was fulfilled, for the rejection of her love proved the immutable laws of destiny. Morrígan, as the weaver of fate, triumphed, but lost as an unloved lover. Dagda, the god of abundance and wisdom, offered her his love. Dagda proposed to share the world with her, but Morrígan always chose freedom. She was not mortal enough to belong to anyone. Lugh, the god of light, pursued her, adorning the sky with golden lights, offering her the light of the rarest stars. But Morrígan would not share the prophecies of fate with anyone but herself. Lugh was swept along behind her like the wind, whispering her name among mountain peaks. But Morrígan never stopped. Her love was as elusive as the wind because she was the dancing shadow of freedom and destiny. She was like a storm that could not be tamed even by love. If a raven sometimes circles alone in the sky, you can be sure that its eyes are watching not only you but also the future. Because Morrigan's gaze is not only upon the past and the present, but also on fate itself. Morrígan was a prophecy that heralded the end of one war and the beginning of a new age. Even if her name is forgotten, it will continue to echo in the winds, in the crimson soils of battlefields, and in the silent whispers of the dead. Let me know if you need anything else.